Hello and welcome to another episode of VisionCast Network, where technology and collaboration combine in service to humanity. Today we have a wonderful guest, Jen Binges, is a wonderful practitioner that really has a broad past of serving people, ranging from young children to women over men and women over 80. But now she's focusing on serving women that are 40 plus, supporting them in becoming even more aligned to who they are as people, as human beings, overcoming physical, mental, and emotional blocks. So please welcome Jen.
Thank you. And thank you for such a beautiful introduction.
You're welcome. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how you got into the work that you're doing.
So I've been a mind and body coach for over 25 years, and it started when I was a young girl. I was about 16 years old and dealing with anger issues and punching holes in my parents' wall, all stemming from the fact that I had severe asthma as a child. And so it felt
Hmm.
as though, I don't know if you ever had asthma, but it feels like an elephant is sitting on your chest with one hand in front of your mouth and you're trying to breathe. And it's very
Hmm.
frustrating and it limits a lot of what you do. And in that limitation, I grew angry and I was really upset.
Hmm.
I fell into the gym. It was something that I could do on my own at my own pace. And I remember walking into the Jackal Lane at the time by my house, and it was white tile, red walls. You got this whiff of chlorine as soon as you walked in because there was a pool in it. And there was a women's section and then the men's section downstairs. And you had to walk down the
Okay.
huge steps all the way downstairs. And in the men's section, there was all kinds of free weights and bars. And I fell in love with the men's section. I think I fell in love with the challenge of lifting, of, old school Jackal Lane lifting. But what happened when I went down there, everyone started to give me advice on how to work out and how to train a certain way, but they were giving me different advice on the same type of workout I was trying to do. So at that moment, I knew I got to figure this out on my own because none of these people all have their own idea of what strength is and what health is and what wellness is. But I didn't know for myself. And that started at 17. I became a certified personal trainer. I went to
Hmm.
with American Council of Exercise, a very reputable personal training company. And that I started to lift and I loved it. It was something I could do. I was getting stronger. And I fell in love with it. I went to college for corporate fitness. After college, I continued on. And it wasn't until I took my first yoga teacher training that I finally connected the missing piece. I was getting physically stronger, but my mind, I was trapped in my mind. I still hated the way I looked. I still hated the way I felt. And I remember walking out, it was a hot yoga class, and I was a hot, sweaty mess, depleted, but I loved it because I finally connected the missing
Hmm.
piece. And I went down that rabbit hole of studying yoga, became a 500-hour teacher, went into kids yoga teaching, Reiki, and then I got into the third component, right? So there's a physical component. I had the mind, and then I finally tapped into the spiritual side, the source, that inner voice. And it was like, oh my goodness, we actually have control of how we feel. And I
So
love
say more about that. Say more about, please, say more about that spiritual side and where that came from and how you came to discover that. That is potent.
Well, I think when I finally connected my mind and I finally realized I went down the rabbit hole of mental training and I studied mental training, I studied sports training, and I knew there was something else. So I was working on conditioning my mind, and then I started studying energy.
Oh.
And the more I studied energy, the more I realized we are energetic beings, and I learned the chakra systems. And then I was listening to like Dr. Joe Dispenza, who's a scientist, but he was secretly talking about the chakras. And all these other people I were studying, and it was like, oh, there is this thing called source. There is
Mm,
another being. And then I studied the law of attraction, and I started seeing these things apply in my life, and I was blown away. So then it was like, how do I connect with source? And every morning I wake up and it's my intention to stay connected with that divine source inside me. It's funny you were talking about this because I don't openly speak of that connection that I discovered with the source inside me and then the source outside. But it is something over the past 2 years that has really been a big part of my life. And in being a big part of my life, people like yourself have flown into my world. And I always say we're talking shop. It's like the more shop, right? The law of attraction and
right.
spirit and energy, the more people we're drawn in. And I think at one point there was nobody in my life really speaking of this. So it kind of felt like not, I shouldn't be talking about this because I was already the person that was like into working out and eating healthy. And now I got the mind thing going and I'm going around and I'm telling all my friends, watch what you're saying, watch those words. You're calling that energy in. So I was already that person. And now I was going to throw in, well, I believe in source and energy. And I think for me, it was like this little bit of they already think I'm weird, but the more I'm connecting to people like yourself and the people that do study law of attraction and energy, it's like, oh no, I found my people.
Yeah, consciousness,
Conscious.
consciousness, integration of multifaceted aspects of our expression here on the planet. You said
Mhm.
something interesting about um, pushing, 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 pushing. And I'm curious, how had that shown up in your life prior to this discovery, and what were the results that you experienced with that outward focus?
Pushing myself.
Yeah. Like pushing yourself and trying to achieve a specific goal. Like how did that expression show up in your life, and what did you learn through looking inside, and how has that shaped what you do in your work now?
It's interesting. I think what comes to mind is I'm so much more relaxed in my life because what I've learned is to trust that I am truly divinely guided.
Mm,
And instead of pushing and focusing on all these other aspects in my life, and that person needs to do this in order for me to feel this way, and that has to happen in order to feel a certain way, I became very relaxed within the last year. And some of my clients have actually noticed it and even mentioned it yesterday that I'm more relaxed. I feel more relaxed. I trust, I know I'm guided. I've seen it. And if I can just share a quick, like the universe
absolutely.
sends us proof. And I'll never forget, I was walking my dogs on this 5 mile trail, and butterflies are my world. It represents my grandmother. She always had butterflies. When we see butterflies, it's my grandmother. She's always there. And I have a butterfly tattoo on my back in remembrance of her.
Mm,
And I'll never forget quick stories. The one time I had thrown embers that were out from a fireplace. It was out. I was cleaning my fireplace. I put them outside at 8 o'clock. For some reason, at 11 o'clock, I wanted to go in my gym and do something, but my dog he was annoying me. He wanted to go outside. And I'm so glad he did because my fence was on fire.
mm,
And it was in the winter, so the hoses were turned off. I'm frantically trying to put this fire out. There was no time to call the fire department. It was a 4 foot section of fence that was on fire. And I
mm,
remember finally putting the fire out, and my insides I was a mess. I was a hot mess. I was anxious. I was nervous. But yet there was a gift. And I said, somebody is watching over me. And
mm,
I remember taking my dogs in the woods for a walk to calm down. And it was the dead of winter. And a
mm.
butterfly flew in front of me. And I was like, thank you, Grandma.
Wow.
Thank you. So that was one time I was like, that is her telling me she's here. And that is the universe telling me that I'm surrounded by love and protection.
Mm,
The second time was when I was walking my dogs. There was a butterfly on the ground, and I picked her up and put her on my shoulder, and she walked with me for 2.5 miles to get back to my Jeep.
Wow.
And I said, you know what? I'm going to bring her home. And I did. And she lived the rest of her life on one of my plants.
Mm,
And she's in my gym now. And she's a remembrance of my journey, my grandmother's journey, and also that I am guided. And that moment has always stuck in my head. And I see that butterfly every day. And I'm reminded I am guided. Obstacle is just a redirection. A rejection is a redirection. And I think in knowing that, there's this sense of calmness. Thank you for letting me share that. I haven't
oh,
shared those two stories in really forever, just with my cousin, because she's like, she knows the importance of the butterfly.
thank you. Those are powerful stories, and it just reminds me of the interconnectedness of us all and how maybe sometimes I heard you say you were pushing, pushing, pushing hard, but really that door that sometimes we push against, that door opens in. And so we're
Yeah.
like doing the counter of what is called for, the surrender, which we as human beings, human becomings, as I like to refer to myself, um, are learning that lesson. So I'm wondering how you use all of this wonderful inner wisdom in service to your clients.
Through storytelling, I'm learning that when I share my stories, it allows people to see what's possible. I
Mm,
was that person that did not see the possibilities in my life. And I not only see them, I live them. And now I don't need to see them. I know they're there. And I can do that for my clients. I can get them physically stronger through working out. And as they're working out, I'm also talking with them, having them get, I think for people, it's just having that awareness, right? That awareness of, oh, I am not feeling well because I'm sitting here thinking about my problems that I had yesterday. So I'm going to bring those problems to today and I'm going to stay focused on that because that's all I know. And so I break that awareness for them.
wow. So when somebody's exercising, their conscious, critical mind is kind of lax.
Mhm.
So whatever it is, I imagine that you're speaking to them goes inside their awareness in a deep place. Do you find that to be true? Yes or no?
Yes, I find I can connect that dot for the person so much faster when their mind is relaxed. And it's more relaxed when I am kind of focusing on putting their body through a workout. Now, of course, I can have that conversation without the workout, but it's an extra benefit to having them more relaxed already when we're starting a conversation.
Wow. So this is kind of like a surprise question here. Um, since you're such a great storyteller, and thanks for that story about the butterflies. That was kind of got me emotional. That you love your grandmother. You
I
love her.
love her.
Absolutely love her. And that shows. So what's a wonderful story about, an anonymous client experience that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Oh man, she's
I'm putting
so
you on the spot here.
no, and there's so many great stories to share, but the one that comes to mind is what the mind's journey of the one client who is 77 now. And
Wow.
she came to me probably 5 years ago because she was severely depressed on a lot of medication, just had survived cancer, and she was falling. Her family was worried for her. She was falling all the time. And I'll never forget the first time she was so nervous and anxious, she could not find my house. This is when she was coming to me. Now we're doing it on Zoom. And I remember this is again how the universe worked. My client after her had canceled. So I had enough time. I told her to stay where she was. And I drove to the location and I had her follow me back to my location. And then we just sat and talked. And that was our first encounter. And then from there, I just brought awareness to the fact she wasn't paying attention when she was walking, which is why she was falling. Fast forward through a lot of my online programs, because I do a lot of online coaching as well. So it wasn't the physical, it was the mental more for her. She used to take 3 or 4 Xanax a day. She is down to 1 to 2 Xanax a day. And for the first time, she said to me that she is happy and she has fallen in love with life again. And so
Wow.
for me, that is beyond what I can ask for when I am with people. That is, she went from 77 depressed, living in a dark apartment, not taking care of herself. She just moved. Imagine moving at 77 by yourself, just
Yeah.
moved to a new location that's beautiful, sunny. She's joined the garden club.
Wow.
She is continuing joining my online programs and she is getting better every day. So it's just a reminder too that you can get physically and mentally stronger at every age. And for me to see her go from this sad, lonely person to this, I tell her now she's glowing. You ever see that? I'm sure you do with clients, right? There's this glow and you're like, yes, they got it. They got it. And she never believed in the law of attraction. Now she knows the law of attraction. She knows how energy works. And I just love that. At 77, she's living her best life finally.
Wow. That is potent. So I imagine that has had a ripple effect on other people she knows as well. So it's not just her, it's the people in her field are probably
Mhm.
picking up on her transformation and maybe starting to ask questions. Yes, perhaps, no, maybe.
Yes. Yeah. And here's this is, I love law of attraction. I writing a book, and during one of my classes, I was talking about the book and the stage, and I was at the point I needed another set of eyes on my book, and she had mentioned that she liked to write. And I reached out to her, and that started a year-long journey of her and I editing my book.
Yeah.
And then now it's at an actual editor and working with an editor, but that gave us time to work deeper in the mental capacity and really put a shift on her life with just the principles from the book, which are all about law of attraction, visualization, energy work, and then how to support all those things, right? It's great to know it, but we need to support it. And in supporting it, it's keeping our physical body healthy, keeping I call it the gatekeeper, right? The gatekeeper of our mind, being very mindful of who and what thoughts we let into our mind and the energy that we're putting out, right? Because we can't attract good if we're not putting good out. And I think that was a big lesson too, for me and for her.
That's powerful. Thanks for that reminder. I'm curious, how has working on Zoom changed your business, your reach, and your ability to serve others? And what do you have to say about that?
I always find the good in everything. And for me during COVID, my whole mission was to stay connected, especially to my clients that were older and by themselves and now even feeling lonely and scared. So for me, Zoom really turned up my game as far as diving deep and making sure people's mental health was okay and intact. And it really was a big shift in, I've always been the physical aspect and the mental, but what's really important to me is the mind. I can get your body healthy. I feel like for me, that's easier. It's the mind part that's the hardest part for a lot of people, for me too. So for me, Zoom has been amazing because I get to connect with like people like you all over the world. I have clients all over the world. And I was back in the day where you came to me. If you lived
Yep.
in another state, I can't help you, but I can help you now. I can reach out to those people. So I think for me, Zoom has opened up this great opportunity to connect with so many amazing people that keep me fueled up, keep me learning and growing. And I'm so grateful for that experience.
Yeah, in every adversity, there's this benefit, right? So I'm curious, then how do people get in touch with you? What's the best way for listeners to get in touch with you?
They can go to my website, oxygen.life. Follow me on any of my social platforms. Facebook, it's Oxygen or Jen Vinges. Oxygen Minds Body on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. Any platform, if you just drop me a message, I'll be happy to return it.
And that's Oxygen, Oxygen.
Yes, thank you for clarifying it. It's in the back because if
It's in
you
there.
Google
Yeah,
it, it'll go right into the word
it's
oxygen.
right there. See my fingers pointing at it.
Oxygen. And that's a
So,
cute story too. That is, do you know what
oh,
those are?
So tell us this story. I'm curious about your logo. Yeah, tell us about that,
So
please.
my logo was designed by a friend of mine. And again, it's based off of like growing up with asthma, that idea of not being able to breathe, which is interesting, which is the throat chakra, right? So it's your voice too, not being able to speak my truth and my voice. And my friend designed the logo, and it's a set of lungs,
Yep.
set of lungs with like the little circles on top. And it represents what life comes down to, right? Breathing,
Prana.
taking that deep breath, bringing it all the way into your body, calming the nervous system, and
Hmm.
then breathing life into ourselves. So it's just a constant reminder of my journey of using my voice and of taking those deep breaths in the moment.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for using your voice and sharing your wisdom and for being vulnerable and open about your process. I believe other people will benefit from this in a powerful way, and it's been my pleasure and honor to speak with you today. So I wish you all the best and blessings, and reach out to Jen. Reach out to Jen.
Thank you so much for having me. So
You're welcome.
good.
Right, this backward Zoom thing, right? There we go. Right.
Oxygen.
Oxygen. Take care, Jen.
Bye.
Be well.